Thanks for listening to the Film Florida podcast. If you have a minute, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Thanks, and we appreciate your support. Welcome to the Film Florida podcast. My name is John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Today, our guest is Kelly Paige. Kelly is the owner of Level Talent Group, which is a full-service SAG franchise talent agency that represents union and non-union models and actors of all ages for film, TV, commercial, and print clients. Kelly is also a past president of Film Florida. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today, Kelly.
Well, thank you for having me, John.
So I like to start each of our interviews with the backstory. How did you get your start in the industry?
I think it's where a lot of agents may have started. I was a child actor, loved the theater, belonged to a community theater, and that was my family. And I moved to Miami in my early 20s and was represented there. And my agent, who didn't come into the office that much, I started actually answering her phones. And what I would do is every time somebody called, I would, of course, try to send myself out. Except for those who know me, I'm, pale-skinned and redheaded, so when they needed an Hispanic, I just could not pull that off. So I then started looking around the boards, and I actually started booking other people on jobs, and I found it so rewarding to see how happy people would get and how excited they were to be booked on a job, and I knew I found my calling to be an agent.
So obviously that's why you opened your own company, but when did you and what kind of pushed you specifically into saying, this is what I want to do forever?
Well, I was working as an agent in Miami, and I was lucky enough to do some work with Miami Vice, and I just loved the buzz and how hard people worked. I mean, back then, 16, 18-hour days was the norm. So I moved actually back to Detroit for a bit and started working for another agency, and then I started with models and started placing them all over the country. Well, I placed about 16 models in my first 6 months with big agencies such as Wilhelmina, Ford, Elite, and I was noticed by Elite, and they actually hired me into New York City, where I spent the next 10 years. And it was great because I got to work with like Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, Iman. I mean, girls that were, we took 90% of the covers every month and loved it. Well, I sort of went on a blind date and met my future husband and took me back to Detroit. And that's when I opened up my first agency called the I Group, which is, by the way, still there today and one of the biggest agencies in Detroit. He then finished his residency, and we were looking for a place to move to, and we got this great offer in Florida. So we then moved to Florida, and where he opened up his practice, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a while. Loved that job, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sort of like being an agent. Mm-hmm. And then I opened up my own agency here in 2004.
For those that are not in the quote-unquote talent business, what's a typical day for a talent agency?
Well, I think it's different in different regions. So for us, we do have what we call a season in the state of Florida. Although we are busy all year round because it's such beautiful weather, we find that some of the bigger companies don't like to come down during what we're going to call our tropical season. Basically, the summers are a little bit slower where we can put in our 8 hours and breathe throughout the day. Now, when it hits season, we walk into first of all, we have 5 different divisions here. We have commercial, we have print, we have TV and film, we have our home shopping network, and we have hosting. Something that's a little bit different about us is that we also work on the West Coast and during pilot season, which just happens to be our busiest time in the state of Florida. And pilot season, of course, is done in L.A. and New York when they are filming their 1,200 pilots to see which ones get picked up. And they're always looking for new talent. So we go through our emails. We usually average about 200 to 300 emails a day. We go through the mail, which could be anywhere from 10 new submissions to 25 new submissions. So we go through, clear our emails out, see what's pressing. I think being a talent agent, a lot has to do with crisis management. We need 6 people by tomorrow morning, or somebody didn't show up for a shoot. So we actually reconfirm all of our callbacks, and that is done usually in the commercial world. You might have a casting, and the talent goes to the first casting. That's great. Casting director puts them on tape, shows them to the director or the producer. They pick who they'd like to see when they're in town here. That's called a callback. We send out the talent who got called back, and then, of course, who books the job. So sometimes with the casting, it could be done in 24 hours and it's filled, and sometimes it's a week to a 2-week-long process. So we do all of that, and then, of course, we do our breakdowns for film and TV. Home Shopping Network live on air is a constant 365 days a year, 7 days a week, and that is also very rewarding. Those are for the people that really don't want to be a film actor or a TV commercial, but these are women that maybe have been out of the workforce, and they get to feel good about themselves. They go on air. They show a product. So that is another big division that needs a lot of work constantly. And that's our day. And like yesterday, in season, our usual day runs about 10 hours a day, sometimes 12. Thing is that we do get emails at 8:30 at night, 10:30 at night, 6 a.m. in the morning. So it's sort of a nonstop grind, especially during season. But if you love what you do, and you just get through it and wait for the summer where you can breathe again.
And Kelly, every company has kind of their core competency or their niche. And you had mentioned you guys work a lot of things across the board, but what would you consider like your one main strong suit if you had to pick?
Well, I think what sets us maybe aside from other agencies is our ability to bring all talent to the next level. And we might start people on HSN and they love it, so then we start getting them into commercials. We find them places to study. I think our niche is finding young talent that can really project how different and special they are. Like I said, we have had the opportunity and the blessings to have many people now in L.A. Thank goodness we started them here. We started one guy who was 14, took him to L.A., got him signed. He was lucky enough to get into 13 Reasons Why. Now he's the lead in the new Party of Five on Freeform that will be premiering, I believe, at the end of this year. They're already shooting. So things like that are so much different. Getting to see our kids, and I'm talking young adults as well, go out to New York and in L.A. to test. We had a 7-year-old who tested for a Steven Spielberg film, A Wrinkle in Time. So he got to go out there with his mom and meet all the people in Steven Spielberg's office and read for a great movie. It's really, really rewarding to see what can happen in film and TV and how great our talent is. But I think that is what sets us aside. We're more developmental. If somebody comes into the office, maybe they were with somebody else, maybe they weren't, and they're just not booking, we try to figure out, why aren't you booking? We see something special in you. Let's find out how we can cross that threshold into getting you to become a booking talent. So we are a developmental agency. A lot of people, hey, if you studied and you're good, great, we'll take you. But we're a little bit different. If we see something, we're going to make you reach your potential. We are definitely going to take you to the next level.
And how many people do you represent?
Good question, because of all the different divisions.
Right.
Probably have about 300 for Home Shopping Network. We probably have about 500 in our commercial division. Our film division is very small, and I like to keep it that way. We probably represent about 50 in our TV and film, and then we have people that we still represent that we work as a team in Los Angeles, and that's about 10 people in Los Angeles. I think we pride ourselves in calling ourselves a boutique agency. Although if there's a big job, we're working on a big job right now, and they need 300 people.
Wow.
We found that out on Friday. Today is Tuesday. We're getting it together, and we will have probably over 300 people on a set on Sunday. So we reach out, and we're able to do that. But being a boutique agency gives us, first of all, the opportunity. We are very selective in who we bring on board, but it gives us the opportunity to really work with people and explain to them how the industry works, how their job is going to work, how they can better themselves in the industry, and how to move forward. And that's, I think, again, being a developmental agency, we pride ourselves in that. We love that.
So even though you're based in Tampa, clearly you're doing work all over the country. Talk about some of the challenges to trying to serve your clients and your talent from coast to coast.
Well, especially during pilot season, when somebody's calling me at 9 o'clock at night and they're from the West Coast, it's only 6 o'clock. And they work until 9 o'clock at night there. So I'm still getting calls at midnight sometimes. I think the challenges for the talent is teaching them what goes into a good tape, and also the turnaround time. I might get something in, and it could be a TV commercial in Tampa, but they need the tapes by tomorrow at noon. So then we have to reach out maybe to 20 of our best talent in that category and say, hey, we need all these tapes by tomorrow at 10. If the client needs them at noon, we need them at 10. Going through those 20 tapes, being able to get them to the producer in time, picking out maybe the ones that didn't have great lighting, didn't have great sound, looked straight into the camera. So I think technology can really be your friend, but it can also be your enemy if you don't do your homework and learn that technology has now become a very big part in what we do, which years ago, you just went into the room.
Right.
There was no technology, no taping. I think it's nice for some of the casting directors and nice for some of these private clients, but it does present a challenge. And if it's like, okay, we need the tape by 10 and they're going to be booked tomorrow, if the job is in Atlanta, some of these actors are in their car driving 8 hours the same day that they booked to be there the next day for a fitting, and then on set the next day to work. So there are many, many challenges and many time constraints for both the agent and the actor. It's really learning this technology and really being able to juggle many different things at one time to make the job go through and to be booked on it.
But at the same time, there are certainly benefits of being based in Tampa. Talk about some of those.
Well, first of all, I love Tampa. I mean, couldn't have picked a better place. I mean, it was just presented to us. There's such a vision in Tampa that I'm glad to be here as it grows and watch the progress. We have so many great corporations, and, we love our new film commissioner. We love Jeff Finnick, who has put in so much into the city. Some of the great things is, and it's a double-edged sword, that Atlanta, our neighbor, has become a hub for TV and film, and now also commercials. I mean, we're doing big, huge commercials there, like for Delta Airlines and Coca-Cola and other big companies like that we can submit on, get them the tape, and then, of course, they go down or drive up, I should say. But if you would have told me 5-10 years ago that Atlanta would be a hub and that you could work your actors in things like Stranger Things and Doom Patrol and MacGyver and The Resident. I mean, these are all huge shows on Fox and ABC and NBC, and not to mention all the Marvel movies. It's great. It does present, though, a lot more work on both our part and the actor's part. I think not having any type of program to entice production to come here and shoot has hurt us. I mean, it kills me when I see some of the actors' paychecks that come to me and they just, paid out $1,500 in Georgia taxes, but yet they live here in Florida. And getting them to their location. I think it was a lot easier when we had production here and we were able to start talent at ground level in TV and film. These are commercial actors that want to take it to the next level and be able to start them here, watch them grow. The person that I was talking about that is now the lead on Party of Five started on Bloodline. He ended up being one of the Rayburn sons. And that's where he really got a lot of his good training, because he was trained on set every single day or every single week. So now he is, going to be on your TV every week as the lead in Party of Five remake. So it was a lot easier to try to develop talent here when we had so much going on. And we had a lot of actors moving here from L.A. Now a lot of my actors are moving to Atlanta. I mean, some of my best are moving to Atlanta. Therefore, then they find an Atlanta agent, which, has definitely took a little bit of a toll on our bottom line. So we even had to lay somebody off because it was so... when I tell you a lot of actors, when I say about 70 to 80 top actors have moved to Atlanta, that's a big number. That's a big number to lose that were money makers, that were bringing money into our agency. And, as a single mother who raised 4 children in this industry and was able to do so because the industry in film and TV was thriving, and as well as commercials, it's a little disheartening, but we're going to get it back. I know that the new legislators coming in, and I think our new governor sees that it can be a great potential for economic impact when somebody comes in and spends $30 to $40 million and you give them $1 million. I would do that all day long as a business owner.
Kelly, something you and I have talked about through the years a lot is the level of rejection that goes with someone being a talent in the business. And I know you take that very personally when you're working with your talent, that somebody can go on an audition 10, 20, 30 times and not get any parts. And a lot of people don't realize how many times someone in this part of the industry gets rejected, and that's difficult to deal with. Talk a little bit about how you deal with that with your talent.
Well, it's a very real part, and thank you for recognizing that and asking the question. Rejection is a very big part of this industry, and I don't care what division you're in. You can... It's almost like, making the NFL as a college player. I use that analogy a lot. There's only so many people that are going to make it to the next step. And then, they'll make the practice squad but maybe not make the team. Rejection is a very big part of this industry. And you have to have the passion. It has to be embedded in your soul that you know that this is what you were meant to do, no matter what. First of all, you cannot take it personally. There might be a time that you go in and you get the casting, you get the call back, you're on first right of refusal, they're looking at you, and you don't get the job. That's very, very real. And it could be because they decided to go with a different mom or dad, or they decided to go with a different kid and you didn't match them. There's so many different reasons why you won't book a role. So you just have got to keep rolling forward, not take it personal. You do have to study, though, and look at yourself and say, okay, what can I do better next time? But I'm going to say that rejection is very real in this industry. We had a little girl that, bless her, went on 14 callbacks. And I'm talking about playing Robert Downey Jr.'s daughter to playing Annie on Broadway 14 times. And the little girl called me crying. And what can I do differently? Nothing. You can't do it. You're doing great. You're being yourself. You're loving what you do. You cannot take it personally. You just have to know that, guess what? You had blonde hair. They ended up going with the brunette. You just have to keep up your drive, your motivation, and just always want to make yourself better. But I tell the parents also, Some of these kids are as young as 4 years old. Some of them are as old as 85. We had an 82-year-old series regular on Nickelodeon. They take rejection the same. And I think the parents primarily have to just keep their kids upbeat. It has to want to be the kids' decision. They have to want to do this, not the parents. And as far as our talent that are in their, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, just keep plugging along. You will hit. You will hit. You just have to keep on plugging along and know that you're not going to get every job. But when you do, the reward is very, very great, and you have to really just keep up their spirits.
So it sounds like you're almost as much of a cheerleader as you are a talent agent.
Well, I have shed some tears with my talent. Had somebody up for a huge Netflix series rag roll. He didn't get it. We cried together. I mean, it is part of it. I had another young man who was looking at doing a Fox feature. It was a 3-picture deal. They sent him out. They loved him. He tested. They kept him there for 4 days, which is unheard of. He didn't get it. And he called me to tell me he wants to leave the industry. And again, we shed a few tears, and I said, listen, you are meant to do this. This is what I tell talent that don't get a part that they could become so, so close for. Every audition that you go on, every rejection that you get is just another tool for your toolbox. The more tools that you have in your toolbox, the more prepared you are to build a great house. Building a great foundation is so important in this industry because when the wind blows, and believe me, it will blow, and sometimes it is hurricane force, your foundation is going to withstand that. So building a great foundation, putting every experience is just another tool for your toolbox. And when your toolbox is full, you're going to find out that you can build one heck of a house.
It's a great philosophy. It's a great way to look at it. Kelly, I know you've been involved with Film Florida for a number of years. How did you get started with the organization, and talk about some of your experiences?
Well, I actually became a member in 2005. I went to a meeting, and I saw all these people in the audience, which I was one of them, one of the public, and all these great people in this big U-shaped, sort of conference room. And it was some of the biggest industry leaders we had. And they were so intense on working together and brainstorming and bringing the industry along as a whole. And it wasn't just about a program at that point. It was like reaching out to every community in the state of Florida to bring the industry together as a whole. Then we started with, hey, there are programs now, there are incentives now. We didn't start it, but we either had to join the band or sit in the bleachers. And we decided to be, a member of the band. And we wanted a piece of the action. There was no doubt about it. People love coming here. But without any type of program, it made it really difficult. And what really started it years ago, of course, there was runaway production into Toronto and Vancouver in Canada, in London. So the people in L.A. started it. Well, then what happened was a devastating hurricane by the name of Katrina. And Louisiana was trying to figure out, how can we infuse this economy? How can we rebuild? I mean, it was an awful, awful disaster. And they did it by bringing in an incentive. And Hollywood embraced because they wanted to help. So they started bringing a lot of production into Louisiana. And then North Carolina caught on. And then South Carolina caught on. And then we started. So I remember my very first year when we were asking for $2 million. And in that $2 million, we brought in $10 million worth of direct spend. This isn't the dry cleaners and the restaurants, This is direct spend. This is the hiring of people. This is the room nights in hotels. And it was a great feeling. It was a great victory. And the next year we went and we got $10 million. And then we brought in, nearly $70 million in direct spend. It just kept on going, and we're like, God, we are on to something. People were working. People were being hired. New people were learning new skills to actually have a career. So we went from 2 to 10, then to 25, which brought in over $100 million. So it was a great time. We had Governor Jeb Bush, who loved to see what the industry was doing in providing the jobs. The average salary made so much sense. This wasn't a hospitality service job, which we love those people too because of the tourism industry. And they work so hard, but we're talking about the difference between $10 an hour or making $25,000 to $30,000 a year and making $72,000 to $80,000 a year. And then they were spending it back into our economy, buying houses, buying cars, putting their kids in great schools. I mean, it would just, kept on going forward. And then, of course, we got the big one that did a 5-year program. What we found that was lacking was consistency. People were afraid to bring a series here because if the series was going to go for 5 years, what happens if we made, they got the incentive and then it was gone the following year? So that was huge to have a consistent program. And we saw things come like Burn Notice, The Glades, Bloodline. It was great. We were able to Level Talent Group booked a series regular into the Glades for 4 years that enabled us to actually hire 2 more people in and, be able to make this actor's life, of course, much better. He bought a house. He invested in Florida economy, and it was a great thing. But again, that was then. This is now. But it was just a great experience and learning as well because we are a different state than most. We do not have state income tax. So, right now it's like, how do we get that back with knowing that we're a very conservative state, but knowing that people still want to stay here. They need to pay their mortgages. And let me say this. We know Burn Notice was a 7-year postcard for the state of Florida that played in over 30 countries. You can't put a spend on that. It was advertising at its highest point. So it was great to be a part of that.
And Kelly, as I mentioned in the intro, you're a past president of Film Florida. So what are you most proud of from your time looking back as president?
Oh, God. First of all, Film Florida, I will tell you, is now a very well-oiled machine. We've come so far. We actually have an executive director now, which is a beautiful thing. It has been so very rewarding being the president and helping to move the industry forward. I always felt that I was missing out if I wasn't a part of Film Florida. And I think people that have never been to a meeting who really need to go and see how entrenched some of the conversations get, not only about programs, but about community outreach and how we can help one another. We're stronger in numbers, that is for sure. I think some of my most rewarding moments was when we were in legislative session, of course, and we found out that they were going to close the state film office. And even though we had no program at the time, they touch a lot of projects. When people are calling from New York or Milwaukee even or California, they need a number to call and somebody to pick it up. Hello, State of Florida Film Office. We were so afraid that it was going to go dark. So we worked really, really hard, and we were able to save the film office. Honestly, it made sense. I think when legislators started to hear, like, oh, nobody's going to answer the phone, we are done, I think most of them understand. I think probably the large percentage understands what an economic and tourism driver a program can be. So we were, as a whole, able to save the film office. Then we found out that they were going to cut the tax exemptions for productions. A lot of small businesses that are here, and such like myself or production companies, they use that small tax exemption in order to maybe hire another person. If it's a larger company, they can use that tax exemption, and the money they save, they use it to get their staff health care. So it's very important that we have that. And basically, it was like raising taxes. So we were able to put a stop on ending the tax exemption for production in Florida. And then I think our biggest hurdle, which we were able to do, was reinstate our LA liaison to a full-time position with the state of Florida. And I know people ask, well, if we don't have a program, why do we have an LA liaison? She is our boots on the ground. She is our voice when we can't be there. Most of us have jobs. All the film commissioners, are busy working in their respective regions. She is the one who's going to all the meetings. It enabled us to, listen, we might have not gotten the 6 weeks here of this production, but she worked diligently to be able to get at least a week here. So she's kept Florida in the minds of many, many LA production companies, of many big studios, and she is our visual. So people know that we may not have a program, but we still have things going on in Florida. Florida is still somewhere where you want to shoot. We understand that everybody has budgets, but if we could just get you for a little bit of a time, then maybe when we do have a program, you see how wonderful it is here, you'll come and spend your 3 weeks here. You'll come and spend your 3 months here doing a feature. So we did get her reinstated, and it's been great. So we do have a voice out in California right now. We have boots on the ground and ears to the pavement on any new projects that are going on. And we still go after those projects. We may not have a program, but we try to compete on other levels. So I think that those are my 3 biggest things as being president of Film Florida when I was in term.
Kelly, whether it's a project that you've already mentioned or another one, what's your favorite project that you've been a part of through the years and why?
God, there are so many because, first of all, every time when somebody books their first job, that's my favorite project for the day. Hearing the screaming on the phone, when somebody books a big job, when somebody books a big TV and a film job. I mean, we start off, we always play a joke on them, First of all, are you on the road? Because if you are, pull over. I think one of them was when I was able to tell my actor that Fox called and you are a series regular. That was, he was crying. I mean, to see a man in his 20s cry was great. But there's been a couple recently that have really hit home, and one of them was a big job in Florida. We didn't realize how big it was going to be, but they wanted real families. It's great because the industry really is changing as far as real people. They don't want cookie cutter anymore. They want people that the audience can relate to. This big job needed 2 real families, and there's a family who just moved to Florida, never done anything before. It was what we call MOS, which is motion on screen. They just had to provide the motion. There was no dialogue. And this family ended up booking, and it was the husband, the wife, and the 2 kids. They were on set for a week. Well, the whole job came to $65,000. They were able to put a down payment on their very first house. I mean, if that don't bring tears to your eyes, we were a part of them purchasing their very first home. And I tell you, it was, tears in the office. I will tell you, I have an all-woman staff, which is wonderful. And so sometimes we get a little emotional, definitely on the big wins and definitely on the big losses. The other project that I still can't get over was when a client reached out to us and they wanted a wounded warrior. They wanted a veteran with a prosthetic. And it was for a very big company, Nature's Valley. And this guy was pretty down on his luck and feeling very alone, as most wounded warriors coming back from combat do. And we were able to book him on this fabulous job. They flew him out to Oregon. He climbed this mountain, don't ask me how, and then we seen the commercial of him just standing on the top of this mountain overlooking this beautiful scenery with his prosthetic leg, and that was a moment of tears as well. I mean, I think the everyday people and the lives that you can change are always a big plus for us, and always just a great feeling that we give back in so many ways, I think, that people don't even realize. But changing lives, always a first house or a wounded warrior, or getting somebody on a 7-year contract with Fox. I mean, it's just a great feeling. And it's not only always about the big money jobs. It's how it impacted people's lives, how it changed their lives. So those are always big deals for me here.
Those are some great stories, Kelly. Thank you for sharing, because they're truly life-changing events make people think about and remember. And it's a great way to end this episode of the Film Florida podcast. Thanks to Kelly Paige for joining us, and thank you for listening. To learn more about Level Talent Group, visit leveltalentgroup.com. That's leveltalentgroup.com. For more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org or visit our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.